And yeah, we'll get right into it. So thank you all for joining us virtually. It always feels a little bit odd talking into the void of Zoom, but Warren and I are going to get through this. So just a little bit about KLT and myself. My name's Abigail. I know I realized my name here says KLT Land Trust, but my name is Abigail. I'm the Community Engagement and Communications Assistant at Kawartha Land Trust. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Kawartha Land Trust, we're a conservation land charity founded in 2001. And our mission is to care for lands entrusted to us and to help others protect the land that they love across the Kawarthas throughout Peterborough. And we do this by creating nature reserves for future generations, by acquiring ecologically important properties and or interests in properties, providing ongoing stewardship care for properties that we own and manage. We also encourage and support land conservation and good stewardship practices by working with private landowners and land care initiatives on their properties through our Partners in Conservation program. We currently protect 33 properties across the Kawarthas, and that includes a little bit over 5,350 acres of each ecologically diverse lands. And we have achieved our successes through the work of our dedicated growing team of donors, volunteers, and supporters, much like Warren, and we're very thankful for everyone that we have on our team. Although we are joining virtually, I'm sure everyone's coming from all different areas. It's very important to acknowledge that Kawartha Land Trust is located within the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory. We are extremely grateful for First Nations and their care for and teachings about our earth and relationship to it. We strive to honor these teachings through our stewardship and respect the land we protect, as well as continue to build and maintain meaningful connections with the Williams Treaties, First Nations, and other Indigenous peoples. So today is a very special event brought to you by the wonderful Warren. We are so grateful to have him and his endless amount of knowledge when it comes to iNaturalist and our Kawartha Land Trust properties. I would consider him a guru myself. He might not take that title, but I will give him that. And so Warren, I'll hand it off to you. I am going to pop up a little poll here, which everyone, when you have a chance, just select on the poll while I'll let Warren introduce himself.
Thank you very much, Abigail. I hope Abigail hasn't oversold me. I'm not really a guru. I wouldn't consider myself an expert with iNaturalist. I have used it for a few years, and as with many things in my life, I can say about iNaturalist, I know just about enough to be dangerous. So I'm hoping I won't lead you astray today if you're not that familiar with it, and if you are familiar with it, I hope you won't hold me to too much to account. So about myself, I've been a volunteer with the Kawartha Land Trust since about 2015. And I quite enjoy getting out on the land. There's some fabulous properties in the area in both the city of Kawartha Lakes and Peterborough County, which the Kawartha Land Trust, that's its area of influence. And so I think I don't know whether folks have answered the poll there, Abigail, but I think we can get going if they have.
Yeah, so it looks like our majority of people have used iNaturalist a few times, but don't know much about it.
Okay. So this is kind of a general introduction. So don't know if you can, do I need to, I just click on that and it disappears. I was waiting for the poll to disappear. So I'm not an expert on Zoom either. So you bear with us today as we try and work our way through this. Anyway, as I said, I'm going to try and give you a general introduction to iNaturalist, community science, and exploring the KLT properties with iNaturalist. And then, why don't we get going? Here's the presentation outline. So we're talking a little bit about community science and how you can contribute. I'll just give you a brief introduction to what community science is, some other terms you may have heard, and also some examples of community science projects that you can get an idea of what we're talking about here. The main bulk of the talk will be an introduction to iNaturalist. So what is it in general? Using the iNaturalist app, which maybe a number of you are on here to hear about. Also using the iNaturalist desktop or web-based version as well, because I think there will be some of you who are interested in that. It's also the app and the desktop have strengths in different areas, and there may be some things that you may prefer to use the desktop for. I know I do. Then we'll talk about exploring KLT properties with iNaturalist and how you can learn about more about the KLT properties, the biodiversity of those properties through iNaturalist, and how you can then contribute to the knowledge of those properties as well. And then a quick overview at the end of some additional community science tools and resources that you can access to help you if on your journey to learn more about nature. So, what is community science? Well, you may have heard the term community science or citizen science. So I'm going to give you a couple of definitions and we'll talk about that a little bit. Don't want to get too dry here, but I think it's important to know what we're talking about. So, oops, not sure what happened there. I clicked on something that I couldn't see. That screen, I think the screen's back up now. Anyway, citizen science, the concept of citizen science has been around for a while. Wasn't really formally defined until it entered the Oxford English Dictionary in 2014. And they define it as scientific work undertaken by members of the general public, often in collaboration with or under the direction of professional scientists and scientific institution. And you can see I've highlighted there the collaboration with or under the direction of professional scientists. So this implies that there are some formal organization or group of scientists that are running a project that other people are involved in. And some folks felt that that was a bit exclusionary, that type. So a lot of organizations are moving towards using the term community science. However, community science has a definition too, is defined by Charles et al. And their a paper that they, whoops. Oh dear. I've got this wireless mouse here that I'm not very good with, so sorry. Community science is the researching and monitoring driven and controlled by local communities, and I put that emphasis in there, and characterized by place-based knowledge, social learning, collective action, and empowerment. And what that really means is you may have a community that's interested in a particular issue or an area, and they organize together and collect information and perhaps try and influence government in their policy making. So that is a bit of a clear definition, slightly different from citizen science, but not quite really what we're talking about here. So you may hear these other terms, civic science, public science, participatory science, or crowdsourcing. I don't think the terms are as important as the concept of getting people in the general public out and into nature, learning about it and providing information that can be used for others for various purposes. And I like the way that the California Academy of Sciences puts it on their website, is that nature and the exploration of it is for everyone. And so I think that's what we're about here today, is so that we can learn how to use some tools to get us out into nature, learn about it, and share that information with others. So I just want to give you a couple of examples of community and or citizen science projects, so you can sort of get a feel for what we're talking about. So this is the Ontario Lake Partner Program. This is a program that's been going on for a few decades now. This is administered by the Ontario Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, in collaboration with the Federation of Ontario Cottage Associations. And so on this map, you see a number of green dots. Each of those dots represents a lake that has been sampled for phosphorus and clarity in order to track the water quality over time. So volunteers, like the two in the picture here, would go out, collect a water sample. They ship them off to the ministry's lab in Dorset, Ontario. They do the analysis and crunch the data, and then they provide it back out to the volunteers who collected it, plus to the public in general. So you can go to this website and click on any of those dots and get the information for those lakes. There are some other interfaces that you can get that information. So very much follows the first definition of citizen science, which is about government scientists or institutions coordinating and working in collaboration, and people out on the landscape, the volunteers collecting data from places where it would be difficult, if not impossible, for the government to get out and sample. If you're an angler, you may be familiar with or participated in volunteer angler diaries or logs. This is a form of, I would say, community or citizen science as well. It can take a number of forms, from mail surveys, like what the Canadian Department of Fisheries and Ocean undertakes every few years. A number of jurisdictions hand out logbooks, which people would fill out during the course of the year and return at the end of the year. And there are also conservation groups like Muskies Canada, which runs their own log program, angler diary logbook program. I believe they've recently switched from using actual physical logbooks to an online form that their members can fill out. And here you see at the bottom too an example from the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. Their Fish Online web application has a tab on it where called Survey, and you can enter your fishing activities. So once again, it's a completely volunteer, these things, but the public are out gathering information that perhaps is not readily available, helping various organizations and government manage the resources out there. And another type of survey that you may have heard of or you may have participated in are BioBlitzes. And so these can be a day long, a weekend long, an extended period, but they're really focused usually on a particular species or a particular physical area on the ground. And so you can see the three examples on the left-hand side here. These are all projects in iNaturalist, and we'll get into projects later, a bit of an explanation of what that is. But they're using iNaturalist to manage these BioBlitzes. And the top one is the City Nature Challenge. This is the Canadian version, sponsored by the Canadian Wildlife Federation. The idea behind this is to get people living in various urban areas to get out and find out about the biodiversity around them, what's living in their community. And they've put it in the form of a challenge to see what cities can get the most observations, find the most species, that sort of thing. It happens around the world, this thing in the spring, early spring of each year. The second one you see there, the Ontario Tech University Zoology BioBlitz. That's a specific BioBlitz that's limited to a specific number of people who are enrolled in a particular course at that university. So the students go out and they monitor the stormwater pond on campus for biodiversity. And it's part of their educational program to go out and learn about what's around them and to use iNaturalist in the project. The bottom one there is an example of a recent iNaturalist project that's been started by our friends over at the Kawartha Lake Stewards Association, and it's aquatic plant contest. So they're taking the sort of the competitive approach as well. You sign up for that project, and the idea is to go out and document aquatic plants in Kawarthas, the Kawartha Lakes areas, and the intent is to teach people more about aquatic plants and the importance to their aquatic environment. So you can see how a BioBlitz can take many different forms. You see that photo on the right there. The Kawartha Land Trust held an Indigenous BioBlitz last fall. Participants, I think, they attended 2 or 3 in-person workshops, or they may have been hybrid workshops, I can't remember. And then the workshops that taught them about the intersection of Western knowledge and Indigenous knowledge, and then they went out onto one of the Kawartha Land Trust properties, the dance property, I think, and then applied what they learned in the workshop in a day's BioBlitz. So that gives you a bit of a background on what citizen and community science is, how you might understand how those community and citizen science can be applied in different ways in those different types of projects. So the main part of this talk today, an introduction to iNaturalist. you'll see the logo there is iNaturalist.ca. So that's the Canadian version, which is also administered by the Canadian Wildlife Federation. And then the US version is the National Geographic Society and the California Academy of Sciences. And there are various sister organizations around the world, iNaturalista in Central and South America, and those are run locally, regionally by various conservation groups. So what is iNaturalist? Well, it's a number of things. The two most important things, I think, are that it's a community of people and it's a large database of information. So that's what iNaturalists, according to themselves, consider. It's an online social network of people sharing biodiversity information to help each other learn about nature. Pretty straightforward. It's a piece of technology that brings people together to learn about nature. And they also say it's also a crowdsourced species identification system and an organism occurrence recording tool. And those are kind of fancy ways of just saying, what did I just see? What's out there? And where is it on the landscape? So records where things are. A whole bunch of people in the community can help you identify what you saw. So that's, I think, pretty straightforward. You can use iNaturalist to record your own observations, which we're going to get into in a little bit here to show you how to do that. To help with identifications, as I mentioned, the community of naturalists out there that can help you figure out what it is you saw if you're new to that particular organism. You can collaborate with others to collect information for a common purpose. So that's where the concept of setting up a project that might be a BioBlitz comes in. Those of you who go out and do iNaturalisting on KLT properties or are working with KLT in a common purpose to learn more about those properties. And you can access observations collected by other iNaturalist users. So it's an open database. If you find something and you want to figure out where have other people seen this, you can figure that out by looking at other people's observations. So that's just pretty basic on what iNaturalist is. And we're going to get into using the iNaturalist app on the phone, a little bit of an introduction to that, let you know how that works. And the handy thing about this app is it is on a phone. So if you're walking along a trail, like our observer on the left, you can just pull out your phone. You can, if you've got your phone with you while you're out cycling, like this keen iNaturalister on the right, hop out there and get a picture of something interesting and record it for posterity. So pretty basic. First off, you'll need a smartphone. And if most of you are probably in possession of one, certainly if you're younger than me, you've had one for a lot longer than I have. So that shouldn't be an issue. And then you'll need to download the app. And that image on the screen there is the icon for the app, and that's what you'll see on your phone once you've downloaded it. So how do you get it? Well, it's available for both iPhones and Android devices. So you'll find the app available from the App Store and Google's Play, and most importantly, it's free. So it doesn't cost you anything to get involved in this, to give it a try, see whether you like it. And let's carry on, figure out how you can get it. So this is an image, screen image, I think from the Google Play. What you'll find if you'll search for iNaturalist in Google Play, and this is what the screen will look like when you find it. And if you like, if you got your phone handy and you haven't downloaded iNaturalist yet, you could follow along and see if the instructions are correct. So yeah, so you find look for iNaturalist, search for iNaturalist, and once you've found this page, you simply click on the install button to install the app. Once it's installed, you will probably be prompted to open the app. There'll be a little option to open it. If not, it may be different on Android and iPhone devices, I'm not sure, but you should be able to find the app icon on your phone once you've downloaded it, and then you can just click on that to launch the app. So once you've opened the app, you'll go through a few introductory pages, which will explain some things about how to use it and that sort of thing. I won't go into that here, but you'll get to this My Observations page once you've gone through those introductory pages. And obviously there's no introductions here because you're just getting started. So you could, if you wanted, just make some observations, but it's recommended that you set up an account first, and then that way you can keep track of all your observations. So up in the left-hand corner, you see there, the menu icon, the 3 stacked lines. You click on that. That's the main menu for the app version of iNaturalist. So you'll see that whenever you go into the app. So if you click on that, you'll get this main menu will pop out from the side, and you can see there are a number of things on there, which we'll go into some of these later, and we'll go into some of them, show you similar things in the web version. But for now, click on the log in and sign up at the top. That green button is what you'll do. And then you'll be prompted to enter your email address, create yourself a username and a password and that sort of thing. Probably click off a few check boxes to allow permissions for certain things. And you'll get to a page that will look something like this. And because you're a new user, you just click on down below where it says sign up now. And so once you've done that, and you get back to the My Observations page, you'll want to start using it. So the thing to do is pretty simple. You click on that plus sign in the green circle down at the bottom to add an observation. And once you do that, you'll get this little mini menu will pop up from the bottom, and you'll see there's some options for how you want to make an observation. So there's no media, take photo, choose image, record sound, choose sound. Now, just a quick way of explanation, the no media means that you don't have a photo or a sound for that particular observations you're going to make. So this could be, say you're in your backyard, you don't have to have your phone with you, or it's in your back pocket and you don't get it out in time, and you see a cottontail rabbit or something. And you think, well, that's kind of neat. I want to record that I had a cottontail rabbit in my backyard. So you didn't get a picture of it because it hopped through the fence into the neighbor's backyard before you had a chance. So you can click on no media and you can add the observation, the time, the date, the location where you are, and that you saw a cottontail rabbit. But because there's no media involved in that, other users can't get on and confirm that that's actually what you saw. So it will remain what's called a casual observation. And there's nothing wrong with casual observations. They're important too. And they're important to you because that's what you saw and you want to record what you had there. There's also take photo. So you've got your app out and you've got the cottontail rabbit is sat there and it's not moving anywhere. So you get your app out, you open iNaturalist and you say take a photo, and you can take a photo while you're doing while the rabbit is there, and I will show you how to do that. And the choose image is if, well, you got a photo of the rabbit, but you didn't have iNaturalist open, and but the photo is on your phone, so you can open iNaturalist and then pick that image and then add the information on when and where you saw it. We're not going to talk about record sound and choose sound, but they work similar to the photos. But the sound parts it's kind of fun to use those as well. If you're out in the spring and you happen to be near a wetland and you hear a frog chorus, you can record that and enter that as an observation onto iNaturalist, and people will get on there and confirm what it was which frogs you heard. You're out in the woods at night and you hear a pack of coyotes howling, you hear an owl hooting. Those are good ways to identify those as well. But we're going to mostly concentrate on the photo aspect today. So, as I've just said, you choose how you want to add an observation through this little mini menu here. Oh, and just a note, you may get a pop-up. The first time you use this, you'll probably get a pop-up that'll appear to ask to grant the app permission to access your camera, voice recorder, and photos for obvious reasons. So click allow on that so that you can then use the app to record your observations. So you have the basics. Now we're going to head outside. Well, virtually for now anyway. And I don't know where you are, but where I am, it's been a bit damp anyway. So, and I've used this picture just to remind me to tell you that observations in iNaturalist are individual based. So they're tied to a person. So if you're out with a friend and you see this tussock moth caterpillar and you both want to record the observation, unfortunately, you're both going to have to take a photo. You can't share a photo with somebody and an observation with somebody. That's just the way iNaturalist works. There is, I think, a good explanation for that. But if you're familiar with things like eBird, where 3 or 4 of you can go out birding and you can make a list of the birds you saw and share it, you can't do that with iNaturalist. So that's just a reminder of that. So we're just going to go through this, adding a new observation we just talked about in sort of real life, virtually real life. So here's a fairly new iNaturalist user. They've got 3 observations up here. They've just seen a common lilac and a chokecherry, and now they want to make another observation. So click on that plus sign at the bottom, as I mentioned earlier. They're going to take a photo. There's some tent caterpillars that they've come across. You just line up your camera and take a photo like you would any other. It's pretty straightforward. You'll get prompted about whether that photo is okay or whether you want to retry. If you press OK, you'll come to this screen, which is the edit observation screen. You can see a little icon of, or whatever you call those little things of your photo there. And it says, what did you see? Well, if you know what it was, you can enter that. But why not use the power of the iNaturalist community to help you figure out what it is? You'll also see you can type in some notes, largest patch of forest tent caterpillars I've sent, or eastern tent caterpillars or tent caterpillars I've seen this year, the date, the time, the location, which includes a lat and long. And then down here, it says location visibility open. This means once you submit the observation to iNaturalist, anybody in the community can see it. If you were, say, on a private property where there's no trespassing, but you have permission to be there, you may not want to advertise where you saw a location because you don't want people showing up there if they're not supposed to be there. So that's what that's all about, changing that location visibility. But in most cases, if you're on public land or on KLT properties, you can leave that open. So when you click on what did I see, iNaturalist will go through uses a computer vision model to look at what you've taken a photo of and try and determine what it might be. You'll see this little green circle spinning around. It may take a little bit longer if you've got poor connectivity out where you are, but be patient and eventually it'll come up with some suggestions. And so this screen will come up then, and your photo will be back right at the top, and then you'll have this screen down below these suggestions. And you can see that iNaturalist is telling you, we're pretty sure it's in this genus, the tent caterpillar moths, genus Melicosoma. So when they say they're pretty sure, it's usually pretty good. I don't know what the probability of them being correct is, but it's pretty high, and it's getting better as more observations are entered into the system. And then when they say they're pretty sure it's this genus, then they give you some top suggestions for what the actual species is. And in this case, they're saying their top suggestion is eastern tent caterpillar, and the next one is forest tent caterpillar. And usually those are pretty good too. If they don't have a good idea, say it's something there's not a lot of examples of already in the database, it's a poor picture or something like that, it'll come up and it'll say, we're not sure, but here's some guesses, here's some suggestions anyway. And those are a little less positive about what those might be. But you can pick one anyway, and the community will help you figure out whether it's right or not. Excuse me. So this observer says, well, I can't remember the difference between Eastern tent and forest tent. One makes a tent, one doesn't. So I'm just going to pick tent caterpillar moss and be, be a little conservative about what that might be. So you can see once they pick that, it shows up in the top in the edit observation, and you click the little check mark down the bottom to say, yep, that's what I want it to be. Until you click that, you can go back and change your mind. And then you can see that it now has been identified as tent caterpillar moss above these other two previously observed plants. And it says, you can see it says waiting to upload. So that's a reminder for me to tell you that when you open that main menu that you get to with hitting those three little stacked lines in the top left, one of the options is settings down the bottom, and go into settings and make sure that automatic upload or auto sync is not clicked. And I'm not sure what currently happens when you download the app, whether the default is to have it clicked or not. But a friend of mine gave me a tip a few years ago when mine was apparently ticked. I don't know whether I did it or it came that way. But what happens then is it will try and automatically sync your observations once you've identified them to iNaturalist while you're out in the field. So if you've got poor connectivity, it may take a long time. It may chew up a bunch of data. It may freeze while it's doing it if it's really poor. Also, I had a couple of instances where I hadn't finished identifying what I'd taken a photo of, and it got uploaded as unknown. So the safest thing to do is don't have that on. Upload it when you get back home or somewhere else where there's Wi-Fi, and then that goes much more smoothly. So let's say we're back home now. You've got these three observations you want to upload to iNaturalist. You hold down one of the observations till you see these circles show up on the left. You click these, say well, you want to upload your lilac, chokecherry, and tent caterpillars observation. You click those, and then you'll see there's a little icon, a little cloud with an upward pointing arrow there. You hit that, and then you can see that the common lilac here is uploading. It's got the circle going, and then these ones will in turn get uploaded as each of them is finished. And then once they're uploaded, you'll see that these are now no longer shaded green, they're shaded white, which means they've been submitted to iNaturalist. So they're now in the iNaturalist database, and they're waiting for other people in the community to take a look at them and confirm or correct your observation. So that's just highlighting that those have been uploaded. So time passes, you may get an email from iNaturalist if you've got the notifications set on, or you may just go back into your iNaturalist app. You open up the main menu and you see under activity there it says one new in this little green box. So you click on activity, you see here that Claire 14963 has suggested that that is in fact an Eastern tent caterpillar moth. So you click on that there, and you'll go to the observation, and you can now see that in addition to your tent caterpillar moths identification, you've got Eastern tent caterpillar. So if you say to yourself, well, that's what I thought that was, you could click on the agree that is there, and then there will be now two identifiers have identified it as the same thing, and then that becomes research grade. And I talked about casual observations before. Research grade just means that two people have confirmed the identity of that observation, and then that becomes available in the database if, say, scientists want to download data for some sort of analysis. Those research grade observations will be included. If you say, well, I'm still not sure whether it's really Eastern tent caterpillar, maybe Claire doesn't know, you just leave it and then wait till somebody else confirms it. So once there's two confirmations of what it is at the species level, it becomes research grade. Some things will never get to research grade. They will sort of be in this limbo saying needs ID, and that's because some things can't be identified to species from a photo, especially a lot of the insects. So in summary, this is a summary, a little summary diagram from the iNaturalist Getting Started web pages. I forgot to mention at the beginning, I've put together a resource list for this webinar. So you don't need to make a lot of notes if you don't want. You'll get an email after the seminar in a few days, and there will be, with that, there'll be a resource list that you can use to follow up on the webinar, go to websites and find help pages and other resources that we'll talk about later on in the talk. So this is from the Getting Started website or web page that has a lot of good information, reiterating some of the things I just talked about. So you just basically, it's pretty simple. Once you've got the app, you make an account. You take a photograph of what you saw, you record the coordinates and the time and the date and the place, and the app does that for you if you've got connectivity. So that's fairly easy. And then you upload it with a, you can put it, as it says here, if you've taken a picture of a butterfly, you can just put it in a butterfly, and the butterfly experts will get on there and help you identify it, and away you go. So that's a fairly quick overview, but I think that should hopefully get you started. And as Abby said at the beginning, there is a Q&A. If you've got any questions, you can put them in there, and hopefully we'll have a little time at the end to answer your questions. So we're going to talk now about using the iNaturalist web-based version or desktop version. And partly to show you some of the other features, and partly to explain how you can do some other things, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So you can see this is the opening page from the iNaturalist. This is the US version, but this represents people around the world. There's almost 6.5 million people have signed up to join iNaturalist. So that's quite a community, quite a large amount of expertise out there that could help you identify some of your things if you're just starting out. So why are we going to talk about the iNaturalist desktop version? Well, if you think about poor old Charles Darwin here, one of the classical old school naturalists, he didn't have a cell phone, so he couldn't go and take a picture of an observation and submit it somewhere where folks could help him. He'd have to make extensive field notes, perhaps some field sketches, which would be refined when he got back home. He might actually have to take some samples and submit them as museum vouchers, which was very common with classical old school naturalists. But you're saying to yourself, well, a desktop iNaturalist isn't going to help Charles here either. So why are we going to talk about it? Well, there are some contemporary old school naturalists who don't use cell phones either. I exaggerate a bit, they do have cell phones. They don't necessarily use them for their observations though. And I include myself in this group. You can see these two keen young naturalists here taking a photograph of this great flea beetle. So their photo is not on the phone. So how are we going to get that photo into iNaturalist and get it identified by the iNaturalist community? So that's why we're going to talk about the iNaturalist desktop version. So this is the screen you'll see when you go into the version for the States, and I'm going to try something here. We're going to drop out of the presentation, and I'm going to go sort of try and do a live demonstration here. Just to break things up a bit so you're not sitting there looking at PowerPoint slides all night. Also, it'll be easier for me to show you how to upload the photos and things like that. So I'm just going to take a sip of coffee here. I hope you all have coffee too. I don't want to fall asleep during my presentation. I'm hoping you won't either. So you can see if you go, this is the US version. Obviously, I use iNaturalist Canada, but I couldn't get to this page because I already have an account. So you can see it tells you there's 143 million observations to date, 431,000 species observed. And this is a screen capture I took about a week ago. You can see this is now over 6.5 million people. So the community is growing all the time and growing very quickly. And so if you haven't already signed up on the app on the phone, you can sign up on the web. You add an email, your username that you create for yourself, your password. You click on there to say you're not a robot. And as I said, there's some check boxes, and then you create an account. If you created an account on your phone, it's linked with this web base. You have one account, and it's just a different way of accessing it. So you would just put your username and password in here. And there, down the bottom there, already have an account, log in. So you would do that instead. So as I said, I'm already on iNaturalist Canada, which I would recommend you do rather than the US version, just because when you go in and you start checking out the community, you'll be looking for you'll be looking at Canadian users, although anybody around the world can help you with your IDs. So you have this little menu over here. If you click on, I've created a profile. You click on your profile, this is blank until you add a picture. You tell a bit about yourself if you like. You can follow people, which I haven't done yet, and that sort of thing. I would advise you to put something in here. If it's just blank when you start, it just says I'm a naturalist, and it's nice to let people know a bit about yourself. If you don't feel comfortable about having your image on the web, put a picture of your favorite flower in there or whatever, but encourage you to do something with it just to make it look like you're active on there. This first page that'll come open once you have an account, it's called your dashboard. And this is essentially, and this is handy because something has happened here. You see that there's a little red shout out thing here and with a 1 beside it. That means there's been some activity on my account. So this is the equivalent of the activity feature on the app. So if you click on there and it says somebody has added an identification to an observation by you. So you can then click on that, review on your dashboard, oops, and then view the observation. So this is an observation that I made way back in 2017. So that's interesting. And it was some mushrooms I saw. Obviously, I didn't know what the heck they were. I put them in as common guild mushrooms and allies. Somebody called them wax caps. I looked up in a field guide and I said, oh yeah, those are wax caps. So I agreed with that person. And then since 2 people have actually, this person says candy apple waxy cap. This is what I've been calling these. No one has corrected me yet, but no one has confirmed. And then this is just someone has confirmed today. So that's kind of a neat thing. And so that, you go back to your dashboard, that's, these are the activities. You'll get some of these things every once in a while. Eastern meadowlark has been split into Eastern meadowlark and Chihuahuan meadowlark. I'm not sure that affects any of my observations, but it might. And you'll often see the splitters and lumpers on here changing taxonomy based on the latest updates, and often with plants. Not quite as often with other. So you can scroll down and you can see all the activity. These are various people who have got on and confirmed. If you go to the observation, you can see that this is an observation I made a few days ago of Lee Skipper and this fellow Rick Cavison, who's a well-known butterfly expert in the Ottawa area has come on and said, yes, that's what it is. So that's now research grade, you can see there. So there's a number of ways you can view your observations. If you go into click on the observation tab here, you can see your observations graphically on a map of the world, and you can zoom in and see what they are. You can look at them on a grid once they're in here, and these are your actual photos that will show up on this grid, and I think they're reverse chronological order, or you can see them in a list, and so it tells you what it is, when you saw it, where you saw it, and when you added it to iNaturalist. So you can do this on the app as well. I find it just easier for me anyway, who spent most of my career using a computer rather than a phone. I find it easier to do on here. Another neat thing is this calendar feature here. So it shows your observations on the calendar, and you can see I wasn't doing much in March and February this winter. But oh, there's an observation on January 28th. Well, what the heck was that? Oh, well, that was a yellow perch. That was a successful ice fishing trip I took with my friend Al. So, and I identified that what I caught as a yellow perch, and 2 other people have confirmed that that was indeed a yellow perch. So that's good because I know yellow perch season was open, so I don't have to worry about any conservation officers coming down on me. And you can see where I got it there, but I'm going to zoom out so you don't exactly know where I caught that, because that's a secret spot. You go back to the calendar. I also had an observation on January 13th. Oh yeah, I remember this now. This was a brown rat that was under one of our bird feeders, and you can see that local naturalists Don Sutherland and Don McLeod both confirmed that that was indeed a brown rat under our bird feeder, which we took down shortly after that. First time we've ever had rats under our bird feeder, so I've heard that it's quite a problem, the last few years. So anyway, that shows you how you can take a look through your observations. Now I want to just give you a quick overview. I talked why we were going to look at this was how do you get those pictures from your camera up into iNaturalist. So there's, as with many applications, there's a couple different ways to do this. So you can either click on the add observations here, or you can hit on the upload here, and you'll go to this screen, and you can either choose your files by going into File Explorer, or you can just drag and drop the files. So I've got some observations I made recently, and I'm going to select these observations, and I'm going to drag them and drop them here and show you. So these were photos that I took with my camera, or a couple of different cameras actually. And so then I loaded them onto my computer, and now I've just dragged them in here. And this is the interface by which you upload your observations into iNaturalist. So you can see there's an empty spot for species name on each of these. There's a date and a time when I made the observation. You can see some of these actually have a location. So one of my cameras has a GPS in it, and the other doesn't. So you can see if I click on this here, it actually shows you where that observation is. And if any of you are KLT people, you might recognize that as the dance property. And you can see that there's some of the other observations have locations with them too. So that's going to be handy for those that I don't have observations with. So you can also see that these are pictures of the same organism. So sometimes if there's something, it's a good idea if something you're not familiar with, to try and get photos from different angles. It might help people identify. But what you can then do is I click on that, I control click on that one, and then I can click up here to combine those into one observation because it's the same species. And just trying to see if there's any others. Yes. So I did an overview shot of this plant and then a close-up of the flowers. So I'm going to control click there and combine those. So now I have, these are the photos of the things I have, I took that day. You can see this species, this butterfly here. I remember that I took that photo just close to this plant. No, to that plant there. So if I click on location, I can then zoom in to that particular plant observation and just click there. I can say, well, I think I might have been like within 15 meters of that. You can change the accuracy and then update that observation. And there's now a location for that as well. So if you have a camera that doesn't have a GPS, you're going to have to make a few notes about where you saw things. I got a couple of other observations that don't have locations. I know that I took that one just near here. Update that. This broad-winged hawk that was flying over. I know that, well, it was right here too, because my car was parked here and I saw it when I was sitting in my car and got out and took a photo of it. And it was about somewhere in that area. You could make a bigger circle because it was flying everywhere, but that's not that important right now. And oops, I had one more. Yeah, this one doesn't have a location. And I know that that one was over near here somewhere. So that's just an easy way. If you're lucky enough to have a GPS in your camera, it'll automatically give you the locations. If not, then you're going to have to do some manual manipulation. And there are some technical fixes to that, some software you can use on your phone that connects a GPS track with the time and your camera. And, you know, there's ways of doing that if you're technically savvy, but this is my solution. So then you can just go through and have the computer vision model help you identify what you've seen. So this is common Star of Bethlehem, and I'm pretty sure that is what that is. This species here, you say it's the genus Psyche, and it's a silvery blue, and I'm pretty sure that is a silvery blue. This one's some sort of a hoverfly, and I'm not really, so it's telling me it's in the tribe Serfini, which is part of the hoverflies, and it's giving some top suggestions here, but I'm not really sure what that is. I'm going to hope that somebody else in the community knows what that is. This is some sort of a sweat bee, I think. Yeah, so it says it's pretty sure that it's this genus, sorry. And then there's 3 species here in that genus. So I'm just going to stick with that again, because once again, I'm not that clear on, I'm not that sure. I know this is a broad-winged hawk. I could just type it in, but I'm going to let the software tell me what it is. This is Cypress spurge. This one here is a honeysuckle, I think. Yeah. Probably Tartarian, but I'm not sure either. So I'm going to put that there. And then this is pussy toes, small pussy toes or field pussy toes. Not sure. So anyway, that's how quick the software helps you identify. That wasn't, I don't think, too onerous to figure out where those things were and get them in the right location. And then I just submit these 8 observations. And it's saving them, and it'll just take a second here. There we go, going to your observations. And there you see, this is where you can actually edit your observations. It'll go here. You can see the tab there, edit. So you can either look at them if you go, oh geez, I got the wrong location. You can go in and then edit at this spot. You can do batch edits, that sort of thing. And then you can do a number of other things as well. But I think we'll stop at that point for the moment. And that's, I think, a reasonably good introduction to the difference in using the desktop version versus the app. So, this is just a summary of once again from the getting started page on iNaturalist on submitting observations, and that's sort of the main difference is you need to upload your photos to your laptop and then bring them into iNaturalist in order to submit them rather than already having them on your phone. So and as I said, a lot of the features are similar on both. I personally prefer the interface with the desktop version, but if you're more comfortable using a phone, most of the things I showed you there, you can access through the phone. So that's sort of the introduction to iNaturalist, a little bit about the app, a little bit about the desktop version. And now we're going to talk about exploring KLT properties. And I think, yeah, Abigail has another poll that we'd like you to fill in, and it's asking you how many KLT properties have you visited? So if you want to just take a few seconds, I'm going to have another sip of my coffee. And I'll rely on Abigail to come back in and let us know the results of that poll.
Yeah, we've got a few people here. I'll just give it one more minute or so. All right, I will close the poll and I will share the results.
So some of you have never been to a KLT property. And most of you have been to between 2 and 10, so that's great. Some of you have been to more than 11, and there can't be any KLT staff on here other than Abigail, because I'm sure they would have all been to all 33 properties. So anyway, that's good. Hopefully, if you haven't been to any or you've only been to one, we can encourage you to get out and explore some others. So this section, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to explore KLT properties. So if you go to the KLT website, there is a page called Protected Properties, and you'll find at the top of that page, there is there's a map, and there are pointed markers on the map that show the location of each of the properties. Down the bottom of that page, and it's partly cut off here for presentation purposes, but there are the properties are all listed, and those are actual links to a dedicated page for each of the properties. So here's the page for the Acacian Wildlife Preserve. Each page will give you some basic information about the property. So the amount of acreage, whether it's open to the public or not. Some properties are not open to the public, either at the request of the donor or because there are some sensitive features on that property that we don't want overuse of by the public to interfere with. I've cut off, you can see there's a little heading there, interesting features. So there are things on the page that I've cut out here for presentation purposes. But if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, there's usually a download available. If there's trails on the property, you can download a trail map. There may be a fact sheet on the property. There may be both, or there may be some more information there. So that is available on the KLT website. But what if you want to know more about the property? You want to learn about a bit about the biodiversity of the property, what observations have been made there, what have other people seen, what are you likely to see if you head out there? Well, that you can do through exploring those properties on iNaturalist. So once again, I'm going to suspend the presentation. I'm going to go back into iNaturalist, and because I think it'll be easier to show you here how to do that. So there's a tab at the top. You see there's your observations, which I'm on right now. There's one called community, which is we haven't explored yet. So on the community one, you can click on people, and it will show you anybody who's been recently active on iNaturalist. And you recognize somebody there, you can click on and find out a little bit about them. They have these leaderboards because folks are competitive, and you can see the most observations in June 2023 and the most species in 2023 are by this fellow, John Reynolds. John is formerly from Ontario. He's currently a professor at Simon Fraser University out in BC, and he is a iNaturalist fanatic. You can see he has 164,000 observations just on his own. He also is running he's a co-leader, he says here, with Brian Starzomski of the BC Parks iNaturalist project. So they got a contract with BC Parks to hire a bunch of students to go out around all the parks in the province and just do iNaturalist. So how cool a job would that be if you were a student? So anyway, so you can click on those and see who those people are. You can also see that John's also not only the most observations this month, but in this year. And a list of people who are on here who are curators, who have some additional tasks that they help look after various different species on there. Well, under community, there's also something called projects. If you click on that, you'll get to this projects page, and there'll be some featured projects. And there's the BC Parks project that I just mentioned that John is co-leading. The Species at Risk project in Canada. There's a Ducks Unlimited project. There's the Canadian Nature Challenge again. Recently active projects are here as well. And then recently created. And so there's a Team Turtle project that's just been created by the Ontario Parks. Bryophyte flora of Simcoe Muskoka. That's a fairly niche project, but sounds kind of cool. So anyway, when you get to this project page, if you go to the search, I've entered this search option before, Kawartha Land Trust, and go, you'll find all the Kawartha Land Trust projects that are associated with the various properties. So there is one just plain Kawartha Land Trust project here. So if you click on that, you'll go to this one. And this one is what's called an umbrella project. So this project is sort of the overarching project for all the other projects. And you can see the various properties are listed here, and you can see how many observations have been made on them, how many species have been seen at them, how many observers have been to those properties. So a lot of people have been making observations at the Ingleton Wells property, but the most species and observations have been made at the John Earl Chase Memorial Park. If you scroll down farther, you can see on the map where those places are, and then you can see here what the latest observations are. And you can see these are the observations that I just uploaded. So those are recent observations, and then, some others a little before that. So from this umbrella project, you can then go and take a look at individual projects. So let's go to that Ingleton Wells project where there's been lots of people. So you'll get to the project page. You can, if you click on the read more up here, you can, it'll tell you a bit about the project. There's a link here to go to the Kawartha Land Trust homepage. There's a link here to go back to the individual property page on the Kawartha Land Trust website. You can you do not have to join these projects. They're called what's called collector projects. So if you make an observation within the geographical area of the property, it'll automatically get captured by this project. You can physically join if you want to get updates, if there were blog articles coming out about them, and most of them don't actually have that at the moment. So you can, once again, you can look at what are some of the recent observations on that property. You can see, once again, there are leaderboards because people are competitive. And you can see that Don Sutherland here, local naturalist, leads in most observations and most species on this property. And you can see a few other names you may be familiar with have made observations there. And I know you'll find Don is leading on a lot of these properties because during the pandemic, he made it a personal project to visit as many of the KLT properties he could, especially the ones he'd never been to. You'll see some statistics about how many of these projects are research grade in the green, how many are in gray, which are casual observations, and how many need additional identifications. And then you'll see this map will show you where the observations have been made, and you can actually click on those and find out what was seen. For instance, there's one of Don's observations, a flat top white aster. And the maps are interesting because you can also pretty well tell where the trail routes are by where the observations are. A lot of people making observations from the trails, which is great. So that will tell you, this will tell you how many observations there have been on the property, and it'll list them all. Once again, you can do it by map, grid, or list. What are the species that have been seen? And it'll tell you how many observations of individual species, who all the people who have identified those, and who are the observers. So this one, as I said, this property has the most people who have visited it and made it observations. So just gives you an idea who's been there and what they've seen and what you might see if you go there. So if we go back, there's a few more here. So you can see there's a real range of observations that have been made on the property. So here's the Van Nostrand property, which is one of the newer properties. And this is an interesting property. And you can see that there's only been one observer. They've only had 12 observations and about 11 species. And that person's me. So I accompanied one of the KLC staff when we first went out to look at that property when it was being considered for securement. So it's an interesting property in that it is a coastal wetland on Rice Lake, just at the mouth of the Indian River. So it's not easy to get to. So if you want to get your canoe out this summer and get down there and add to the observations for this property, that would be great. And I think I'll leave it there. We could go look at a whole bunch of different properties, but we'll leave it there for that. I'm looking at my time here. So we'll go back. I'll go back into the slideshow. And at this point, I just want to, like the technology that has gone into the development of iNaturalist is really amazing. It started as a graduate project by 3 graduate students. But the thing is, the technology is cool, but we remember the thing is really about is connecting people to nature through that technology. So it's the important thing, and iNaturalist recognizes that, and they want you to connect with nature. They want you to use this tool to do that. So I'm hoping what I've given you here is enough information to use iNaturalist on your phone or on your desktop. And hopefully I've inspired you to go out and take a look at some of the KLT properties that are out there, learn what other people have seen, and add your knowledge and observations to the overall information about those properties. At this point, I'm just going to give you a couple of quick A few quick additional community science tools and resources. Won't be spending any time on there. As I said earlier, there will be a resource list that come out. And so if you want to follow up on anything, but there are a lot of apps out there that are available for the phone. One of them that's connected to iNaturalist is something called Seek. It's not as sophisticated as iNaturalist, but you do use your phone to help identify things, but it's really geared for those of you who have kids in your life, children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, friends, children. It provides challenges. You can earn badges. It connects with iNaturalist to tell what's been seen in the local area so that you can go out and try and find it too. So that's a pretty cool app. I've used it a little bit, but I have to admit I'm not that familiar with it. There's this really neat app called Shroomify. Helps you identify mushrooms. It's got some great photos. It's got this feature here, you see this says maize common fungi. This changes by month, so it tells you what to keep an eye out while you're out in the field, and it's got some great photos and some keys. Clam counter from the Toronto Zoo and Fisheries and Ocean Canada, very similar. You can put your location in and it'll tell you what clams are likely to be found in your area if you're rooting around in a river or something, and also has some keys and that kind of thing. There's the Ontario Reptile and Amphibian app, which similarly tells you what you might find in the area, gives you some photos and ID tips, and for the frogs and toads actually has recordings of their calls. eBird, I'm not going to go into this a lot. There's a desktop version and an app. You could spend a whole another webinar talking about eBird, but just to let you know, I use this mostly for my bird observations, mainly because I was on eBird long before I was on iNaturalist, so I continue to use eBird, and it has some features that appeal to me as far as when you're out birding, like the option that I mentioned earlier about being able to share lists with your friends while you're out birding. Another app from the Cornell Lab for Ornithology, the Merlin Bird ID, it uses similar computer vision software modeling to help you identify pictures of birds. It also helps you identify bird song. It's getting better as is iNaturalist with the more observations that are entered. I would be cautious with the bird song part of it though. It's a good learning tool, and it's good to sort of listening and say, what am I hearing, everything that I think is out there, and you can use Merlin to make a recording and see what it's picking up. But I have used it. I know it has a difficult time picking up brown thrashers because of their song is the double phrasing a long time apart, so it has a hard time picking it up. But in the interim, I was watching a thrasher one day, and it identified it as northern mockingbird. It identified it as gray catbird, and the catbirds hadn't returned from migration yet. And and I've also used it while I was watching a red-eye vireo singing, and it identified it as both a red-eye vireo and a Philadelphia vireo. So you need to be cautious when you're using Merlin, but it is a great learning tool, and I do actually use it quite a bit. And there's many, many more. I've used some of these. I haven't used this picture insect or the picture fish one, but I've used some of these others. The moth one I find is you really need to be a moth expert to use it. So it's not really helpful for the general public, but I don't think. A lot of the hard copy guides are available as apps, like the Sibley Bird Guide. It will cost you though about $20. The Mammals of North America, I think, is about $10 now. The benefit of these though is they do have vocalizations included in them. So there's lots of stuff out there. You can go and look. And as I said, I'll have refer to some of these in the resource list when at that you'll get after the webinar. There's lots of online resources as well. Here's just some examples: Bug Guide, Ontario Wildflowers, All About Birds, which is a fantastic website that Cornell University has, the Ontario Freshwater Fish Life History Database. Ontario Nature has a bunch of different pages, including this amphibian and reptiles page, and there's a tree atlas that shows you the distribution of trees and what might you're likely to see in various parts of the province, and that's from the Ontario government. Traditional field guides too, if you're just getting started. I like a field, I grew up with traditional field guides. I still like a traditional field guide. I like the feel of it. I like to be able to flip through the pages when I'm having a coffee or whatever. There are some great ones out there. The Peterson guides are all good. The moths and mushrooms, they also do bird guides. There's many Sibley's bird guides. The Newcomb's Wildflower Guide is one I like. It has a nice key in it to help you narrow down what the wildflowers you might be looking at. This is a good field guide to dragonflies and damselflies of the East, but it covers all of Eastern North America. And I actually prefer this one here, the dragonflies and damselflies of Algonquin Park and surrounding area. And it covers the dragonflies that we're likely to get in this area. And it's been put together by some local folks. There's the great ROM guides as well. And this aquatic plant guide that I mentioned, the Kawartha Lake Stewards Association, it's a free guide from them. And I think they're updating that and producing a new copy. But it can be expensive if you don't already have some field guides. It can be expensive to build a library. So all of these are available from the Peterborough Public Library, and probably if you're not from Peterborough, from your local public library or through interlibrary loan. So go to the library, join the library if you're not already a member, and take some of these out and give them a try and find, you might find you prefer the Peterson guide to the Sibley guide or the Audubon guide to the National Geographic guide. So it gives you a chance to try things out before you commit to purchasing. And when we're talking about traditional field guide, this isn't really a field guide, but it is quite traditional. This is a project that's been undertaken by Joe Pitawanakwat and his colleagues at Creative Garden, and they've been visiting Anishinaabe communities around Southern Ontario and trying to capture the names, the original names from the Indigenous people of birds and the history behind why they're called that. And so that's kind of a neat project. I just came across this a little while ago. I ordered a couple of copies from them, and I haven't received them yet, but I'm looking forward to looking at that. And these aren't field guides either, but I wanted to highlight a couple of other resources that are cool for local people. Up in the right-hand corner, you can see Nature's Year in the Kawarthas, a guide to the unfolding seasons. That's by local retired educator and a naturalist, Drew Monkman. It's a great book that goes through the years month by month and tells you what you might expect to see in the way of insects or bird activity, mammals, what's happening in the night sky. It's what kind of weather you can expect. And then the flora of Kawartha Lakes, it's not a field guide either. It's an illustrated checklist, and it was recently produced by Dale Leadbeater and Ann Barber, and it's as I said, it's more of an illustrated checklist, but it has a great introductory section on the physiography of the area and what plants you might find where and why. So after all that, sitting here at a webinar, the idea is to get outside for real and explore, and hopefully use the iNaturalist to help you learn more about the outdoors, nature in your area, help you contribute to knowledge in the general area, and hopefully you'll visit some Kawartha Land Trust properties. So, and if you're stuck for something to do, I mentioned that aquatic plants project that the Kawartha Lake Stewards Association has set up, the contest. Why not join that contest and then head out to your nearest Kawartha Land Trust property and see if you can identify some of the aquatic plants. Not all of them have as extensive wetland as the Christie Bentham property or the Van Nostrum property, but wet areas are an important component on many of the properties. So that's it for me, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Warren. You are very, very well spoken, and I gained a lot from that. That was wonderful. We actually only have one Q&A question here. I will open the floor to anyone else. There's a little Q&A button at the bottom of your screen if anyone has any last minute questions here. But Warren, I'll propose this to you. Oh, actually, I should, this isn't a question. This came from Anna, one of our staff members. We are launching a new website coming soon, which will allow a bit more ease of access for everyone to see what properties Kawartha Land Trust has that are open to the public. So that will be coming very shortly within the coming weeks. And it's a great platform to be able to go on and have a really quick look at properties near you and the maps and trails that are accessible. But if anyone does have a question, you're welcome to use that Q&A button at the bottom there. While we wait to see if anyone comes in, Warren, I just want to thank you so much for your presentation. It was very, very well done. And like Warren mentioned prior, if I will be sending out an email to all of the attendees shortly. We've got lots of thank yous coming in here, Warren. So in the questions here, we've got lots of thank yous coming through and that people are inspired to go out and explore and observe now. So that's wonderful to hear. I will be sending out an email in the couple of days with some of the resources that Warren has mentioned as well. Just a little thank you from KLT. I'm going to make one answer live here, or one question live here. So it says, Warren, thank you for a very informative presentation. Do you have to keep the photos on your phone or computer once you've uploaded them, or do they stay on the iNaturalist server?
They stay on the iNaturalist server. So if you need to clean off your phone, if it's getting full, you can do that or send them to the cloud. But once they're submitted, they're in the database.
Fantastic. And we've got another one. Can you obscure the location of your observation to the public, but still make it available to the database?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I should have mentioned that. Any sensitive species, species at risk, are automatically obscured by iNaturalist. Same thing happens with eBird, for instance. But you can change the settings for that and obscure if it's something that you're concerned about. Say, you got a picture of an owl nest or something you don't want to. But that will be available to iNaturalist in certain circumstances. So you may get a request from, if you'd say take you obscure the location of something here in Ontario, you may get a special request through iNaturalist from the folks at the Natural Heritage Information Center at the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, asking if you will join their species at risk project so that they can see the exact location for conservation purposes. But yeah, you can certainly change. And what happens in many cases when you obscure, if anybody else goes and looks at that observation, they'll just see a big 10-kilometer square where it was located, where it was observed, whereas you can still see the exact precise location.
Fantastic, thank you. And I think the last question that we've got on here is, does the iNaturalist community appreciate newbies? For example, those who can't identify anything and just take the suggestion. Is there increasing value in the number of overall observations?
Yes, absolutely. And I should have showed you some of the species accounts when I was on there. I forgot. But the more observations of given species over years gives you a better idea of their seasonality. So you can see things, for instance, butterflies. Once you start building up the number of observations, you can see which ones have a single hatch during the year and which ones have a second hatch by the frequency graphs. You can see where various species are located, what sensitive areas might be for those species. And certainly newbies are welcome. As when I first got on involved, a friend of mine told me, don't worry, there's no lack of people who come get on there and tell you when you're wrong. And that was a bit cynical, but There are lots of folks on there who will help you identify. If you don't know what something is, but you know it's a plant, put it in as a plant, and that will help at least the people who are interested in botany perhaps take a look at that observation. Some users are absolutely fantastic about giving you additional hints on what something might be, what other resources you can go and take a look to learn more about a particular species that you may have incorrectly identified or something like that. Other folks will, experts who are busier, maybe just correct your, but nobody that I've experienced yet has told me to get off because I don't know what I'm doing. And you know, so it's I think a very welcoming community, and people are genuinely interested in helping other people learn. And there's people on there like you or me who might be not amateurs. There are folks on there that are academics. There are people who are professional naturalists or biologists, and everybody has a different level of expertise in different taxa. And you know, somebody who's an expert in birds may not necessarily know much about plants, so they're learning as well. So it's I think it's a great tool.
Thank you so much, Warren. And that is wonderful. It looks like that's the end of our questions there. And thank you everyone for attending. I know it's not always easy staying on virtual, but we really, really appreciate it. And thank you, Warren. And again, we will have the recording up within the next few days, along with an email coming out for anyone that missed anything. And Warren, thank you so much. We are huge fans of you at KLT. We're very happy to have you a part of the team.
Thanks very much. It's a great organization to be involved with.
Thank you. Everyone have a wonderful evening.